Hey everybody, welcome back to Decadence weekly discussion with Dread. Um, Tonight we're talking about episode 7, um, which I personally thought was a pretty uplifting episode, I guess would be, if I had to say it in like one word. Um, and I think it continues to show things that I really treasure about the show, with it being an anime original and having I've praised it in the past for having sort of like guts, and I like its pacing and how it actually like makes decisions with its narrative. Made a very big narrative decision this week, with at least I think how we're going to see the characters in like a certain like chunk of time here, where Kaburagi, has to now is piloting this a new body for him. He's in a new avatar, a new Navi, and he I thought it was interesting to see him sort of like interact with the other characters in this body and sort of like get used to it. I like how they made it a point that even though he is an experienced veteran of this game, that he still struggles with this new body. And we had talked before, Dread, about how it's good that like it's gonna be sort of like the awkward esque moments of him interacting. Like if he does interact with Natsume in this new body, like she she's very naive about what's really going on. She doesn't know anything. She is she going to know that it's him? And this episode definitely like taps into that question. And I don't know. I liked how did you like how they address our man Kaburagi going into his new body in this episode?
So I think there was a ton of different ways that they could have went about this whole, even going back to episode 5 when figuring out that the director that we've been calling him, his name is Hugan, because I just rewatched the first 6 episodes before watching episode 7, and I did it with my girlfriend on Hulu, which subtitled all of the text on screen.
Oh,
So now we know that the guy we've been talking about, Hugan, going back to when he repeated that statement to Kaburagi, the world must be rid of bugs. From that point on, the story could have taken so many different kinds of turns. They could have killed off Kaburagi, replaced him with a new character, this, that, the other. And if you think in the production room right now, not only did they have to come up with a real body for Kaburagi in his cyborg form, they had to come up with his avatar that we've seen up to this point, and now they have to have a third character design for him in his new avatar.
yeah.
Those totally could have been 3 separate characters in any other show,
Yeah.
but you can see that they're actually really going in on this. And what I think is important is when we go into Deca-Dence, the game, with Kaburagi's new body, now we're seeing it from the perspective of a new player. So we see this intro cinematic that Minato gives, which kind of confused me a little, about him saying that everybody knows about the gears, as if Deca-Dence is part of a larger narrative,
Yeah.
and the new player is welcomed into the power. The first mission that he gets in the game is to stop the Gadal incursion, which in itself shows the superiority that the cyborgs feel over the tanker, which I'm assuming at this point, though we're calling them cyborgs, that their actual race name is Gears.
Yeah. That's something that I like definitely took away from this episode is that you get like you're almost striving for like human pride because it's sort of like it's you just feel such a caste difference between the the gears, the cyborgs and the tankers. And that's made evidently clear by like the incursion where we get the like the wall is like breached or the side of it is breached, right, and we actually get Godal. Uh, Kind of reminded me of like made me think of like flashbacks to like Ava, like Angels attacking Tokyo 3 or whatever. But like you get the Godal actually going into like the sort of everyday area of the tankers, and clearly it's
The scary
dangerous.
part about it, I think the scary part about the Godal incursion is that it's not really comparable to things that we've been comparing the show to.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Attack on Titan, the whole Shigan Shina thing happened. And while there's like a larger story behind that, I don't think that's at all comparable to the Godal incursion. And like you say, the Angels attacking Tokyo 3, sure, there's a larger story behind that too. But Minato straight up tells his assistants that the tankers are getting too high in number.
Yeah,
So they're using the incursion to do a form of population control, essentially.
yeah,
It's just straight up mass murder from the superior race to the other.
yeah. We're
And
like the
there's no
cattle that
remorse for it at all.
yeah we're like the cattle that they need to thin the herd, and it's
And
go ahead.
it brings me back to one of the other episodes we talked about, which I think was episode 3, that explained that the humans had gone on through the late 2400s, adapted cyborgs, basically killed the Earth, and that the cyborgs were the superior species, or the majority species at that point. And it just flashes me back to thinking that, again, I don't think Solid Quake is telling the Gears the full story.
Right.
There, there's some form of propaganda there to make all of the Gears feel the same because they're they're basically keeping enough humans alive to let that be an attractive point into joining Decadent.
Yeah.
And that's so fucked up.
It is. It is super. This episode made me, you know, if you were on the fence about like not like if for some reason you didn't like the cyborgs before, you definitely don't like them after this episode for the most part. I mean, there's like Minato has done some like cool things for his buddy Kaburagi, but I perceive that as just more like I don't really think he has any like emotional tie to tankers. Um,
I think he just did it because the script called for Kabu in certain regards,
mm-hmm.
and then going towards the corrections facility. I'm not sure what to make of that because Minato would be aware that Turkey and Donatello were there. So I mean there's a possibility maybe Minato planned for Kabu to meet them,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think he expected it to go the way it did.
Right. I think
And
like maybe he just like respects Kabu in a way. Like there's no way he
yeah,
could perceive what Kabu is actually planning on doing now. Or at least like when he was giving that olive branch out to Kaburagi, he definitely didn't picture what Kaburagi's mindset is, because his mindset is definitely different than what it was episode one. Um, and same could be like I love the development of our two main characters in this show. I was talking before how I wanted to see more Natsume perspective. I love Kaburagi. I don't want people to think that I dislike Kaburagi. I think he's really cool. I think of what we saw of him in this episode and what we I presume to see in the future episodes. I'm excited for that, but I'm also excited for Natsume because I like Natsume a lot. Natsume has had to make has been pretty steadfast in what she wants, and it's even at the sacrifice that we see of her relationships with her relationship with her friend. I don't remember her friend's name, but
which one, Faye?
Faye. Thank you. Faye, out of the a lot of the tankers sort of just live this sort of fearful status quo life, and that is what she wanted. Faye wanted this a nice life with her friend. Faye wanted what most people, I think, would want, and Natsume just happens to not be most people. She is pretty courageous and outgoing, and willing to sort of really go after what she desires. And she's grown a lot from knowing Kaburagi and through her own effort a lot. We see she has like a pretty badass moment in this episode where she, intercepts a Godal from, attacking a bunch of people. And it's just cool to me to see like that character like comparatively to how when she was like cleaning shit in episode 1.
I think that specific scene where she intercepts the Godal is like, I'd like to see that scene be more important than I think it's gonna be.
Right.
Because she saved that little girl, and
Yeah.
that little girl started like looking up to her. So now Natsume's becoming what she respected as a child. She loved Kurenai.
Yeah.
Now Natsume is
Passing the torch.
essentially Kurenai to that little girl.
Yeah.
So I'd
passing
love
that
to
torch.
see I'd love to see at the end of episode 12 or whatever, maybe we see, it doesn't have to be this specific girl, but maybe some child that Natsume saved or they were impressed by her, that they want to take their own fight.
Definitely.
Maybe not necessarily to the Godals, because maybe the Godals will be done being what Kabu's planning. But I'd like to see some child look up to Natsume at the end of the show.
For sure. And sort of like leading into like the future of this. Because the episode like then goes into like very emotional and inspirational moments where we actually see Natsume sort of break down a little bit in front of like, I should mention too that she's still obviously in the dark about what about Kaburagi and his new body, about him being in his new body. She gets sort of a glimpse of it with him picking up pipe, is it his mannerisms with pipe.
I'm wondering if she kind of knows, because she has this love for pipe that nobody but her and Kabu have.
Right.
And the way Pipe reacts to seeing Kaburagi in his new body.
Yeah.
And the way Kabu handles Pipe, I wonder if just slightly she knows. Because they did visually show, her vision shows Kaburagi playing with Pipe.
Mm-hmm.
even though the avatar doesn't look like the Kaburagi she knows.
Hmm.
So maybe she's putting that together.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
The
super
hard
surprised
part,
down the line. Oh, go ahead.
the hard part, I think, is going to be for Kabu trying to play the part. He was starting to struggle in the beginning, and even during his conversation with her after he finally drank the milk,
Yeah.
he was still struggling. So there might be a point where he slips up in his speech and something comes out. Because clearly before, he almost slipped when he said this world is Manu and cut himself off.
I do have two questions then, going into the. It was just one, and now what you were just saying sort of sparked another one within me. Um, and I didn't really think about this till just now, but is there. I don't think that they're going to go down this route, and maybe it'd be a bad idea. But is it. Would it be that bad for him to spill secrets to her? Or is he too scared
Well,
that that might blow her mind and really discourage her to know that she's been sort of in this game this whole time?
I think he's going to have to at some point.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is, now that we're starting to understand the world a little more, and now that I've rewatched the first half of the show, I kind of got a larger understanding of it too, because we mentioned this before in like episode 2, but this show is great at visual storytelling.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's not said in the dialogue, but is shown on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the best examples was one of the Gadals that they were fighting in like episode 4 or 5. I think it was actually Alpha. It might have been Gadal Alpha, where he let the fog out. It was definitely Alpha because that was the whole fog thing. He let the fog out, and one of the characters, I believe it was Kurenai, said, "This thing can see in the fog," as a question, and then you see its infrared vision going from person to person. It's not like in another show where somebody be like, "Watch out, it's got infrared vision, it can see you."
Yeah.
Comes to my mind with Final Fantasy VII. You're fighting Guard Scorpion, and Barret, don't attack while its tail's up. It's going to counterattack with its laser. But I've noticed that, and maybe you missed it, but above Decadence the Fortress, you know how Decadence itself has its own zone?
Yeah. I remember that.
There's a ship at the top of the zone, which is the same ship Hugin kicked Kaburagi out of into the corrections facility. So I'm wondering if the ship and the fortress are tethered together. So as Minato commands where to go, the ship follows. Because that zone itself is what's showing the projection of the Gadals.
Huh.
And they specifically said that the game takes place on Eurasia.
Right.
Which would make a lot of sense that they could cover a lot of ground there.
Mm-hmm.
Though I'm sure they could probably make it to Africa somehow. Maybe something about the world Africa doesn't exist anymore or
Also, like,
whatever.
if I remember, don't they show, like, the globe at one point and there being, like. Aren't there other factions? Or there are other.
It does look like there are other fortresses, yes.
Which we haven't even really, like, explored. Um.
So Decadence is probably not the only game. And now that you bring that up, because I forgot about that when I saw the visualization of the globe when they were explaining that. That does give us hope that even if the Godal threat is taken out in Decadence, that the story could continue
Yeah,
in these
that
other areas.
that was going to be the other thing that I wanted to mention is like I I feel like I'm sort of split. Like I feel like the show is setting up for a good single core conclusion. Um, but do you think that we could see another? Do you think we could see like a sequel because it's not tied to a manga or anything? Um, and even though we were the originals, and don't anybody on the internet ever forget it talking about this series. There seems to be a little more buzz going on about it. Um, I guess it's
I
gonna
think
go ahead.
I think it's totally possible because you look at shows like Psychopaths. That was anime original.
Mm-hmm.
Say what you will about the second season, the films, whatever.
I only saw season one.
It's going it's going on 3 seasons, 4 or 5 films. That's a lot for an anime original.
Yeah,
So there's promise. I just what I don't want to see happen is if they clear the threat of the Godals and Decadence. I don't want to see them go to another fortress and it's Godals again.
yeah,
I would hope that these other fortresses that we see around the globe are all sorts of different games that Solid Quake has running.
Oh wow.
And in a way, kind of like Sword Art Online is. Like, I find it weird that I'm bringing that up. But the difference between SAO, GGO, and Underworld, I would like to see something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I do I just don't want it to just overstay its welcome, I suppose. Like I don't and I think it's just cuz I'm liking the ride so much currently and I anticipate a really nice hopefully a really nice feeling at the end of episode 12 or 13 whichever it's going to be. Um uh and like who knows, maybe they could wrap it up in a certain way where it just feels there. But the monkey wrench into it is that like we are perceived that there's other stuff going on in this world, but who's to say that like decadence isn't the highest in command, and if you take down that big domino, the rest fall. So I don't know.
That that's another thing. What I could see happening is if they do want to push it forward, that maybe let's say Decadence isn't the biggest domino, but let's say oh, them destroying Decadence is kind of a big hit. And then if they destroy another fortress, then whoever controls Solid Quake, now they're really pissed. Now it's a battle between Solid Quake and the people destroying the fortresses. They get to them before the next fortress is destroyed. That way we don't go from fortress to fortress, same thing over and over again kind of thing.
Yeah. You guys only beat Nappa and Vegeta. Now it's Frieza.
But it fast tracks us to, all right, the villain of the series is fed up and wants to take a step of action,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to intercept our hero. The hero might not expect it, but we're going to try to get through it. We might lose a character,
Yeah.
We might see Natsume and Kaburagi end up in jail or something. But if they can get it out of the if Kabu can get out of the corrections facility as a cyborg, you know, I think there's a way that the story can be written where, depending on these next few episodes, obviously, depending on if Decadence is the biggest domino, or if there's a possibility all of these are interconnected fortresses. So one being destroyed might physically harm the other one.
Yeah.
In a sense that they'd all be of equal strength, and well, Decadence is down, now the other ones kinda don't function either. My question would be if Decadence is destroyed and humans can live on the surface again and rebuild their society, and the gears no longer have their entertainment, and they feel superior to tankers, what is the real solution here? Because just destroying Solid Quake as a foundation won't be enough. The gears have to unlearn their racist behaviors and thoughts.
Or do they just separate from tankers entirely? Can they? I guess
That's the thing.
it depends on like how dilapidated whatever like whatever their social structure is. If this mini revolution of mankind happens and things just change and drastically and whatever, and humans have sort of regained sort of their actual status on the planet. If they're capable, do the cyborgs just leave? Are they capable of leaving? Is there just are there other places they could go to, or do we have actual like separation? Does that cause a mini like a war between factions here?
I think the answer to that lies in what Oxyone actually is.
Yeah.
Because all we know is it's Godal blood. But now that we know Godals are manufactured by Solid Quake,
And
where are they getting the Oxyone from?
I want to know more like what's the nature of the chips within people?
Why the tankers were chipped?
Yeah. Like why or what like is it just tracking or is there more to it? Is it just keeping track of certain things or like what power does
So
people
you
being
have to assume. Let's take Natsume as an example. If all humans are chipped, they must be chipped at birth. Without the knowledge of the parents.
right?
So I'm assuming that even the town of Tank, its medical facilities and its legal facilities, whatever they may be, because all we see it as is a village, but those must exist,
Yeah.
are run by gears. They have to be. And in fact, it's probably not just gears, it's probably run by Solid Quake directly. So, if this is happening, they must be doing it as a form of, like you said, tracking. I also think it plays into what Minato said about population. They're trying to keep a number count
Yeah.
of how many they have in case they need to call humanity again.
But is that just to
And
keep them in charge?
of course it's to keep them in charge. Because if they can if they can do something as simple as count people, they have all the technology to take out humanity that they need. I don't know if there's anything deeper that they're doing with the chips. There's a possibility that it might rewrite the brain, but I'm not too sure on that because we know Natsume's chip malfunctioned.
Mm.
So maybe she's just slow in some ways on catching on to certain things that are happening. But I would find it really hard to believe that not a single human in all of Tank has started seeing the sky like at the end of the event when the sky just changed almost instantly. Like nobody saw that.
Yeah.
I know I know they might not be able to see the sky in Tank because it's kind of like again Final Fantasy VII Midgar when Kura and I was talking about they're living under, the steel and everything. But there are tankers that join the power. And clearly, when they're out there fighting Gadals, this stuff happens. It happened at the end of the event and nobody questioned it. So I almost wonder if the chips do have some kind of device in them to make them perceive this as just how reality is supposed to be.
Sort of keep things quiet.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Or it could be a way to like read their thoughts as well. And then bugs can't exist in the program, as Hugin puts it. So maybe bugs have a different definition to Solid Quake. Because the bugs that we're aware of are Natsume, whose chip malfunctioned, Kaburagi, which betrayed the corporation, Mikey, Turkey, and Donatello, which we know Mikey was scrapped, and Donatello and Turkey didn't talk, and thus betrayed the corporation. So I feel like the bugs that Hugin talks about are those that simply prevent Deca-Dence from running perfectly in a way where nobody on either side is interfering with the operation. It's not a physical glitch in the system. It's just somebody acting out against the system's will.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Kaburagi is acting against the will and being said that he has bugs. And we know Natsume is one simply from her chip malfunction. I don't have a good explanation otherwise why Turkey and Donatello would be considered one. Other than that. And I just feel like that's another form of control that Solid Quake is putting on these people. And but we know it doesn't matter if you're a gear or not. Once you join that fortress, you're owned by Solid Quake.
Man. This show, man, just continues to keep me intrigued. And it's like you mentioned, like the visual storytelling. I like how there's always, even when they reveal things, there are always just underlying things that it keeps you thinking about. Oxyone, the you learn like we've learned a lot about like I say we've learned a lot about the relationship between Gear and Taker, but then we really haven't. But then you still knew a lot. It's just it is exponentially interesting, and I'm really excited for the rest of the series. I think that we're going to reach a real cool core of episodes here that I'm not gonna say like make or break, but I think are certainly
The defining
important.
part.
Yeah, important as to like if we see more than 12 episodes. I for sure. Like I don't think. I really hope it doesn't like feel like it's going to be 12 episodes and then all of a sudden at 12, like at the very end, there's some weird cliffhanger-esque thing. I would hope if there were I would hope that if there was another season, that it would be multiple sort of puzzle pieces moving around that make you interested to see more, and not just sort of maybe like one big reveal or something like that. But I'm excited for the future of this. I am happy for Bugs. I'm happy for humanity. Uh, this is like a big fight the power moment in this series. I don't like seeing Natsume cry, and neither does Kabu. Um, but I like this episode a lot. I love the show a lot. Another thing that I love a lot is Dread's channel, and if you haven't checked it out yet, you really should. I'll have a link to that down below, as well as my Patreon page if you want to consider joining that. Yeah, thank you everybody that supports me on there already, and thanks everybody out there for watching. It really means a lot to me. My name is Miasma, and we'll see you next time.